Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of TekTalk with Sodhi. Not just another entrepreneurship show, but here we don't just talk about the innovations, we also talk about the journey, the sacrifices, and the untold stories behind the headlines. For today's episode, get ready to meet a powerhouse at the intersection of innovation, sustainability, and creativity. She's a visionary who's redefining the landscape of environmental technology. Today, we have the honor of sitting down with Tara Gupta, CEO and the driving force behind Map Collective, an AI-driven platform revolutionizing how we track carbon emissions and trace supply chains. But that's not all. Tara's accolades speak volumes, from being honored as a Forbes 30 Under 30 Energy Awardee to receiving prestigious recognitions like the Northern Virginia Chamber of Commerce Environmental Technology Innovator Award. With a background as a research-based artist and a fervent climate entrepreneur, Tara Gupta's journey is nothing short of inspiring. So let's dive into the remarkable story of Tara and uncover the secrets behind her success. Tara, welcome to TekTalk with Sodhi. It's honestly a pleasure to have you with us, especially during the Women's History Month. To kick things off, why don't you tell listeners a bit about yourself and your journey that led you to co-found Map Collective?
Thank you so much, Sodhi. So just to introduce myself, I'm the founder and CEO of Map Collective. And we've been working on really interesting technology at the intersection of supply chain and carbon. So our technology is focused on global resource transparency and bringing to light the balances of these resources that are so essential to our longevity and our sustainability as a planet and as a human race. So what we are really focused on was derived from my experience in design and in urban design, actually. So while I was at the Rhode Island School of Design in my undergraduate degree, I learned quite a bit about how urban designers think, how we pursue systems level change in the urban sense when we're looking at an urban plan, when we're planning for how nature plays in the city, how we meet both human and biodiversity needs. And that really fed a lot into how we started thinking about approaching this from a data and mapping perspective in Map Collective. So I come from a tech background, a tech family, and was introduced to tech at a young age and was able to really integrate a lot of these design principles into the upcoming ideas of tech and innovation. But I do think that a lot of this journey has been shaped through just the experience of entrepreneurship, the ups and downs and the pivots that inevitably take place as you are on the journey of customer research, of market research and product validation. And that's what's led us to the product we have now.
Very, very interesting. And I think everybody knows that every entrepreneur's journey is very different. And that's the whole idea, right? To learn as much as we can from each entrepreneur's journey that is going to be on the podcast. And it's very, very exciting to have you here. So to better understand, the concept of digital twin for Earth systems that you have, in Map Collective is fascinating. So could you explain the technology behind it and what potential it holds in terms of impact?
Yeah, thank you. So digital twins can mean many things. Digital twins have become increasingly popular more recently as we have the technology to model out different types of systems. And we can have digital twins in very specific processes, such as for an industrial process, you might have a digital twin that is simulating what is happening in that energy production and energy usage level. Or you might have, on a much larger scale, a digital twin in the sense that it is a model for simulating what happens at this macro scale, what might happen when we test or different levers on a larger system. So it really is about modeling a system and getting as accurate as we can to reality, mimicking reality. And so what we are using a digital twin for, or what we are referring to as a digital twin, is our model of global supply chains. And really through that, our model of global resources. So looking at the stocks and flows of essential resources, such as different critical minerals, different types of raw materials, such as lumber or palm or rubber, materials that go into so many of these critical supply chains that create our consumer goods, our automotives, any heavy manufacturing supply chains. So we're looking at those and modeling those out on the macro scale across the globe.
That's impressive. And thanks a lot for that clarity. It does sound like it's going to have a great social impact as well. So how long has it been that you started with the idea? What made you start with this whole journey?
So at the beginning of this journey, I was really inspired by the need. I think everyone in this generation is very inspired by the great need of climate change and the urgency of it. And so we see all of these effects firsthand. And when we started in 2020, we weren't even seeing as many of the effects as we are seeing it here in 2024. So we started in 20, and I was inspired by the idea back in 2016 when I was in school. And I think a lot of this came from not only the urban systems that I explained, the urban systems thinking that we definitely apply design thinking in the way that we approach Not Collective, which is an iterative process. So it's really systems thinking with this iterative design, prototype, deploy, and then come back and design, iterate, deploy, and come back and assess. So we've been doing that throughout from 2020. And so we have really been taking that design approach. But I think also for me, my background, I've had personal health challenges, which have really impacted the way that I think about healing. So I think of the earth as a body, as something that we do need to think of the same way we think of holistic medicine. We need to think of the earth as a system with these flows, with these levers that we need to manage actively. And so that's really what inspired me at the core. And I found that this framework that we are partnering with, the Planetary Boundaries Framework made by the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research, we found that this framework has been very useful for actually looking at the macro effects and is a very popular framework in climate dialogue. So it's something that we're trying to deploy into our tool as well as a way of goal setting and getting us beyond just net zero carbon, looking at ways that we can actively move the world and these different systems of biodiversity, of water, of aerosol loading, all into a positive state.
I completely agree. I mean, we should be seeing Earth as a living, breathing being as well. I mean, it is, and we are all a part of it. It does make a lot of sense. But when you started off, were there any big issues that you faced, any initial hurdles that you faced that you really had to overcome?
Yeah, I think that the entrepreneurial journey can be very complex and it can be very different for different people. For us, we've never really taken VC funding, and that's been maybe partly by choice and partly not. We have never seemed to be the right fit, but also we ended up being in a great space for grant funding. So we ended up taking a very grant-focused pathway, and we might take VC funding later on. But I think that for us, the type of research we've been doing has been very deep tech focused. And in those initial stages of our growth, I was thinking, does this not validate what we're doing? Perhaps if we're not getting that type of feedback from certain venture capitalists, and maybe we're not doing this raise in the way that or we're not following the path in the way that we're supposed to be, quote unquote, So we definitely felt like we have some questions around that, but we were finding that, there was still validation in other ways. We got an excellent contract with the County of Maui. Then we got another contract with this company, Coraleaf, who took a chance on us in the early days. So I do think that things worked out even when it seemed like they weren't. And when one source of funding maybe was running out, then the next would come in just in time.
Right. It only kind of suggests that the plan was pretty clear in terms of what you really wanted, in terms of the VC funding or the grants. And grants are also a great way of kind of validating what you're trying to do. In terms of those fulfilling moments of your entrepreneurial journey, is there a big milestone that really made you pause and celebrate?
There's been luckily as many moments of those as there has been also the hurdles and obstacles. So we've had great moments recently where we've just filed our first patent. And that's been really a success in finding a new methodology for how we plan to automate a lot of these processes and reduce the labor in a lot of the processes of supply chain transparency and greenhouse gas accounting. So a lot of that, we've been figuring out answers to a lot of these very difficult questions in automation and focusing on answering these questions as a way of meeting our customers' most urgent needs as they comply with increasing amounts of regulation. So I do think that those recent wins have been really what's propelling us forward in finding out that we have this excellent technology and we are filling a much needed gap.
Yeah, I'm sure that must feel really great. And congratulations on the patent as well and all the wins. And I'll ask something which is completely opposite. So when you really did hit a roadblock, because you know that as many wins as there are also as many hurdles, right? So when you did hit the roadblock, did that make you question if you were on the right path, if this is worth it to kind of keep on going and keep on fighting for? What was the thought behind overcoming that hurdle?
Yeah, of course. I've had both personal and company hurdles. And I think my personal hurdles have been much more challenging than my company hurdles. So I've had periods, I live with lupus, and I have had periods where I've been hospitalized for 2 months. So back in 2022, I had a period where I was hospitalized for 2 months and I wasn't able to really do much day to day. And what I found during that period is that I really found confidence in my team. And I was able to really build up one of my team members in particular, who I think is just an excellent leader to this day. And we've gone through so many iterations of his role as well. Piyush Gambhir, he's our head of sustainability now and chief product officer as well. So he is really guiding the product. And at that point, I was thinking, how can he also step up into this new role when it's not something he's really done before either? So I think having confidence in him to do that during that period and really figuring out ways that we can rely on the team in periods where I'm not maybe able to do a certain action and finding out what that team dynamic looks like. I think that has been essential in being a leader who has to deal with something like lupus. So I think that's been a really interesting journey as well, where it might be something that other entrepreneurs relate to in a very different way or have an experience that maybe crosses it. But I do think that having this challenge has made me a better entrepreneur because it's also made me believe in my team more and trust my team more.
So yeah, this kind of support is absolutely very helpful. Reflecting on your entire journey so far, what has been the most valuable lessons that you've learned that our listeners who are budding entrepreneurs can learn from or can take away from?
I've seen some very interesting entrepreneurial journeys, and my perspective is that you don't fail until you decide to. So there's always the opportunity for success, even if you have to pivot 5 times. I think that even if you have to downscale, find another source of income in the meantime, which luckily we have not had to do, but I do have friends who have had to temporarily take a pause, and then all of a sudden they're launching a completely new line with a major brand. So it's amazing to see that kind of turnaround and that perseverance when somebody is just really passionate and dedicated to an idea. But you might go through all these emotional situations like during the journey. It can be years in the making. And then sometimes what people call it is an overnight success has actually been 10 years in the making, and you've just recently had a pivot. So I think that a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck in the fact that the stories you hear, it sounds like, oh, this person has, like we have over 1.2 million in grant funding, which we never would have expected to be in this position maybe a couple of years ago. We would have loved to think that we could be, but we thought maybe VC funding was the only route to this. And so I think if in the beginning, you're looking and you're like, okay, well, that's not possible for me, or maybe you are overconfident and you don't meet those goals. And so if you don't, I think it's a matter of understanding that it's not that they're now out of reach or that they're not coming, but if you have the passion for it, then you should keep going for it.
Absolutely. It's more about the destination. And if once you have the destination clear, then it's all about following the process, right? It's all about in adversity, how you really pivot, how do you really shift that entire core of your process at that point, and what you really need to do, because at the end, you want to reach that destination of what you've envisioned. No matter what challenges come up your way, you have to move forward with more determination. It's definitely not a straight line to success in entrepreneurship journey, right? So absolutely agree with that. And So what's next for Map Collective, and how do you really see this product, this platform evolving, and what's the vision of its impact on a much later stage of sustainability and tech?
We have some really interesting pilots and use cases going on right now where we have some very big name brands who are looking at scope 3 usage of our tool for scope 3 calculations, which are supply chain emission calculations, where we're actually automating that process, which is not something that's been done before. We are also looking at implementations for supply chain transparency, automating that, which is something very new as well. And also for biodiversity tracking, we're looking at new research and potentially starting new research around that area, as well as continuing research in our supply chain transparency realms, because there's still quite a bit of work to be done in creating true end-to-end automated supply chain transparency. So the research will continue, and we are in commercialization of our new products where we're really looking at a lot of these automated tools that have come out of our NSF, National Science Foundation, Phase 2 SBIR funding.
This is very interesting to learn about, what's happening in the world of sustainability and tech, and absolutely to see the success that you're moving towards and you've already achieved. It's nothing short of inspiring. It's honestly been a pleasure, and I really hope today's listeners got the right takeaway of your journey and how you really pivoted and how you face the challenges and how you really work towards the success of your business. And it's honestly very, very inspiring. I know that we've come to an end of a chat. It was short, but it was very, very insightful. And I really thank you for sharing this incredible story with everybody. Thank you so much, Tara. Thanks a lot for your time. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much.
Well, thanks to everybody for tuning in for another episode of Tech Talk. Remember that success isn't just about the destination. It's about the journey and the lessons learned along the way. Keep pushing boundaries, stay true to your vision, and never underestimate the impact you can make. Here's to chasing dreams and making waves in the world of entrepreneurship. Thank you so much.